maybe we should start at the beginning.
All right.
Where a person is likely to start in their practice. Of course, I'll be speaking primarily from the Buddhist tradition, but there's a certain commonality in meditative traditions all around the world.
Well, I know you've studied some of the Christian contemplative practices.
Yes, and in fact, nowadays there's an enormous dialoguing and cross-fertilization that goes on between the Christian contemplative tradition and the Buddhist one, simply because we recognize each other's similarities. The thing I particularly like about Buddhism is that it has a step-by-step methodology that's very sort of technique-oriented and gives you something to do, and almost like a computer program, like a flow chart, and that appealed to me very much.
Yeah.
But by and large, around the world, meditative traditions, they're basically dealing with the same material, so you come up with similar type experiences. So although what I say will be specifically out of experience on the Buddhist path, much of it is applicable to Christian, Islamic, Jewish, mystical traditions also.
Well, in these various traditions, what are some of the characteristics then of the beginning stages?
Well, typically, if we take with Buddhism, when you start out, the first thing that you're going to be given is a meditation posture. It doesn't necessarily have to be the lotus posture of twisting yourself up into a pretzel, but some type of position where the body can be kept still and also get a very sort of alert sense at the same time. So something that's likely to be upright and seated. Because those are the two characteristics of the meditative state: alertness and quiet and calm. And to have one without the other is not meditation. So they at first teach you a posture that is conducive to those two characteristics. Later on, you don't need the special posture. You can carry that out into day-to-day life. The first thing that's likely, to be encountered is a meditative posture. And this very simple thing of just understanding the effect of posture is probably one of the major contributions that the Buddhists are making towards the Christian contemplative tradition. It's not unusual nowadays to have Christian monks sitting on the lotus position to do their Christian meditation, simply because they find that more conducive.
It's better than sitting in a chair, for example?
It's better than slouching. So you get a position that's upright and relaxed, and you learn how to settle into that.
Yeah.
So you get your posture. It doesn't have to be the lotus, although I was, in a sense, fortunate. My teachers forced me into the lotus posture. It was very, very difficult, but I'm glad that I learned it now, simply because there comes a time when you want to sit many hours at a stretch. And although it's hard to believe, the lotus is much more comfortable for long sittings than a chair would be once you get used to the lotus.
If the posture becomes so important then in the early stages, I would assume that this would also entail a lot of just simple awareness of what your body is doing.
Well, this is very true.
A lot of people think that meditation means leaving the body somehow.
Yes, no, I would not say so. That sort of gets us into what will come 2 steps down the line. First, you learn a posture, you settle into it, and then you're given some sort of focusing exercise. It could be anything. It could be focusing on the breath. It could be focusing on the body sensations. Many, many objects are possible. And what will happen, of course, as soon as you focus on something, is your mind will wander. And you'll bring it back, and it will wander again. And you'll bring it back, and it will wander again. And at this point, of course, people often get discouraged. But if you keep working with it, a time comes when it wanders considerably less. And when the internal dialogue, the constant conversation that we have with ourselves, begins to sort of fade into the background a little bit. Things get calm and focused. At that time, you will also notice that your breath will tend to spontaneously either slow down, or at least your oxygen hunger becomes noticeably diminished. Well, what's happening now is that you are starting to enter into the first stages of a whole continuum or spectrum of steps of ever deeper calm and ever brighter alertness.
Is focusing really necessary? Isn't it true that in the Zen tradition they say just sit?
Well, there are several different approaches used in Zen. There are different schools of Zen. Whether you just sit or whether you focus on an object, in the end, everybody that practices meditation goes through the same sequence of states of calm and concentration. There are various ways to develop it. You can do it with a mantra, or you could, well, let's put it this way. We say focus on an object. What we're really saying is rest your attention on that object and let go of everything else.
Now, you used the term mantra a moment ago.
Yes.
Can we define that?
Mantra is a simple sound that is repeated either out loud or to yourself over and over again and has a calming effect. The basic idea, though, is even though we use the word concentration, what we're really talking about is letting go. You don't so much concentrate on the object as you let go of everything else. And it's sort of related to Newton's, to paraphrase his first law of motion, if there's not some force vector to pull you away from what you're resting on, you will stay there. So just sitting and letting go and the ability to focus on one object turn out to be exactly the same experience. The interesting thing, though, is that not only does the mind become more focused in the sitting, but that carries out into your day-to-day life. So you go deeper and deeper and deeper, but your meditation, that state of concentration also gets broader, by which I mean it envelops more and more of your day-to-day activities. The other important thing to keep in mind is that it affects not just your mental state and your focusing power, but it very much is an altered state of physiology with a very distinctive constellation of changes in the breath, the brain waves, the electrical conductivity of the skin and whatever. So we're talking about something that's affecting the mind and the body simultaneously. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as time goes on.
So the beginning stages of meditative practice, I suppose, involve becoming acquainted with this realm of altered states.
Well, this is a particular altered state, which involves a habitual development of calm and concentration.
Calm and concentration.
That's right. And it's very distinctive, and anybody that has experienced it knows what it's about. And it can get deeper and deeper. Generic term to describe the whole continuum of states of focus. And then they will distinguish different benchmarks of different depths. So when you do studies of comparative mysticism, which is one of my interests, it's very interesting to see how they deal with this. For example, the generic term in Christianity for this sequence of states is oratio quies, or prayer of quiet. Prayer. It was also called recollection, meaning not to remember, but to pull everything back. In Buddhism, we call it by various names. One of them is samadhi, in the generic sense of samadhi. And then there's different benchmarks. It gets deeper and deeper. The other important thing to realize is that this is not the ultimate goal of meditation.
Samadhi is not.
Not in this sense of the word samadhi, in the sense of just developing concentration. In the Buddhist tradition, the concentration is looked upon as a tool, somewhat analogous to a microscope. You have to have a microscope before you can see the fine structure of the cells of your hand.
Yes.
And you have to develop some of this concentration power before you can see the very significant, deep structure of your own psyche, your own mind and body.